Welcome to Asking the Right Questions, podcasters' perspectives on personal progress. We're really just the draw for you guys to be here and tell us what you think and what your experiences have been. So thank you for being here at the 8:30 session, which is gross a little bit, but that's okay. It's not anyone's fault. So
8:30 on
the last day, you guys. So we are going to do introductions. Probably you're familiar with at least Ricardo or Meridith. I don't know, me maybe. Maybe there's some fans in the house. Tim, my one fan.
Love it.
Yeah, and then we're going to jump right into audience participation. So we'll start with Ricardo.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Ricardo Martinez. I'm the founder of the I911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, and I've been in public safety for over 20 years. And I'm also the creator and host of Within the Trenches podcast. I'm going on episode 600 in just a couple days. Thank you. I'm, I guess, an OG because I've been doing this since like 2012. So
the OG, I would say.
For a long, long time. I feel old now, but it's heard in over 60 countries, and it's been downloaded just over 2.3 million times. But that's all stories from 911 professionals like you. The podcast is story-based as well as interview-based. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. So I'm Meridith Jensen, for any of you that I haven't met yet. And I am one of the protocol experts with the implementations department at Priority Dispatch. We are probably the newest one in the game, I guess, right? Yeah. So we launched our podcast last year called Tell Me Exactly, and it's a communications podcast. We try to cover kind of all things related to emergency communications. We have a whole team of experts at Priority Dispatch that speak on all kinds of topics. Our first episode, if you haven't listened, is even with the founder of the protocols, Dr. Clausen, and it's a really fun one. So be sure to check that one out. But yeah, we cover kind of, like I said, everything and anything related to emergency communications. We kind of try to focus on best practices and giving tips and tricks for kind of all levels of leadership at agencies, whether it's dispatchers in leadership roles or all the way up to management or stakeholders on kind of how to get the most out of the systems that we provide and things like that. So we just started our podcast, like I said, last year. We've got over 20 episodes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and like you guys, I come from dispatch, so I've got more than 17 years experience in public safety, and I really love this. So I'm learning and growing with the podcast, and can't wait to hear from all of you. So thanks for being here.
And I am Becca Barrus. I am with Dispatch in Depth. We have over 150 episodes, and those episodes are mostly the things that I'm interested in. I don't have a lot of oversight. I probably shouldn't say that on record. But it started out as a very research-heavy podcast, and we talked to a lot of protocol experts, but we got into a lot of the nitty-gritty of like the research behind the protocols. And I've stepped away from that a little bit just because I wanted to make it a little bit more accessible, right? Like anyone can go to aedrjournal.org and download the white papers and download the things, but it's really good to like talk to the people behind them and hear in their own words what they've been doing. And I also, like in the run-up to Navigator, I'll talk to a lot of the sponsors and exhibitors that have their products and services here. And it's a lot of best practices, lived experiences type of things. And this, I mean, the PowerPoint is not super duper in depth, but if you have missed the QR codes for any of these, you can find it on the app. And now we're gonna turn it over to you guys. So Cody has our mic, and we have about half an hour left, I would say, in the session to just hear from you all. I would like to hear, well, we would all like to hear experiences that you've had, facts maybe that you've had. And Meridith is, for the benefit of the tape, Meridith is Vanna Whiting her way around some Tell Me Exactly t-shirts.
Very
Ladies
nice.
and gentlemen, these are the type of t-shirts that just get softer as you wash them. So if you share, you can get a t-shirt and become the envy of your center when you go home. So again, the questions are, what facts would you give to someone who thinks that dispatchers aren't first responders? It's really important that we sort of hammer home the importance of what you all do, especially during this week of National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, when you could be at your center with your people celebrating with whatever themes and all of the celebrations that go along with that. So we wanted to emphasize that. So what facts would you give to someone? What stories would you tell someone who thinks that dispatchers aren't first responders? And then what would you say to other first responders who don't think dispatchers are first responders? And I'll leave it on this slide, but those are the things we want you to be thinking about as you're sharing. So is anyone feeling particularly brave?
I got a story.
Yeah. Yes, please.
I love it.
And
So I took a call. It's been quite a few years ago, and a 13-year-old boy came home from school. Found his 15-year-old sister
Oh, man.
hanging from the banister. And of course he was distraught, and he couldn't get her down. And he had called Dad before he called me. So Daddy came and he was able to get her down. She didn't make it. The sad part was that her mother had hung herself a year before,
Oh, man.
but she didn't make it. So that's a story I would tell.
Yeah.
You just, he was too weak. He couldn't lift her up or nothing. But you just have to be there and just reassure him that help's on the way. And even though, with her already almost black from where she wasn't breathing, I knew she was dead. I wasn't, of course you don't share that, but that's a story I would tell.
Yeah.
thank you for
Thanks
sharing.
for sharing
Thank you.
that. Yeah, and I mean, anybody that could hear that story and then still kind of have that thought of us not being first responders, that one, session over? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
how can you even follow that, right? I mean, I think probably everybody in this room has experienced something that they still carry the way that you do. And thank you for your bravery of sharing that, because obviously that's really still one that you carry around. So, we all got into this to do the best that we can and provide help and in whatever ways that we can, regardless of the outcomes, right? We all know that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this that when we were first talking about this session and what we were going to be going through, one of the, inspirations for a lot of these questions that we're asking and looking for came from things that were going on in the 911 profession, whether it be what happened out in California that spawned a rocket science movement type thing with an agency out there where someone had said in a public forum, you guys, your job isn't that hard. And that agency was watching this live. And also, during that time, there was something out in the 911 world where in a podcast, someone had mentioned that dispatchers were not first responders. And there was this huge backlash. And I thought, wow, this is going to be something. So we wanted to, especially for this week, as Becca was saying, highlight some of these questions, but also all of you in storytelling mode and just sharing some of that stuff, some of those facts things that you would say to people, and that again, that right there. So well done. That's what this all came from.
Yeah. Thank you again for sharing.
Yeah. Who would like to share next? I think the youngest dispatcher that we have at this conference, she's how many months old? 4.5 months old in the back room. Future dispatcher back there learning already. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I've taken my share of calls over the last couple of decades, but my friend Katie sitting next to me here took one just like a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. A pregnant mother was taking a bath and wasn't expecting that. She looks down and there's a head coming out.
Oh, what a
Yikes.
In the bathtub. So she calls 911, gets our friend Katie here, and of course we use EMD, we have EFD, you have all those protocols, but there's nothing in the protocol to guide you through a birth in the bathtub. So she kind of questioned at first whether or not to get this woman out of the bathtub, but nope, we need to just do this right here. And wasn't it the father-in-law? The grandpa calls it in, so I mean you can imagine that awkwardness. But how she communicated with the grandpa, I mean he was super excited and super nervous. You could hear it on the audio coming through. And as this baby is born, one of the coolest things that you will ever hear in a 911 career is that baby's cry.
Yep.
And there was nothing else said, that baby's cry was the best thing. You know, we share really terrible, tragic things. But that, for me, I don't care what protocol you have, hearing that as a 911 operator is the best thing in the world. And then the grandpa just absolutely loses it. It was great. You know, but that kind of thing makes us the first responder. Yes, you're sending help, but what's happening in the meantime?
Yeah.
And through her help, this child was born into the world, and it was awesome. So I just wanted to give her that shout. She didn't want me to tell that story, but
Well done.
I mean, you guys, everyone in this room is a superhero. You have the ability to turn someone that is completely untrained, unknowing, you know, scared, out of their mind, upset, angry, whatever, and turn them into someone that can actually save a life or bring a life into the world. And so how can that not make you first responders, right? You're getting there before anyone else. You're going in with no hands and no eyes. And so you only have the power of your voice. So, yeah, I love it.
As far as telling someone who is questioning if we're actually first responders, I would tell them Florida dispatchers are currently considered secretaries.
Oh, wow.
But what secretary works 18-hour shifts and has to be 6 hours later to work another 18? Name a secretary that could tell you what to do when your child drowns.
Right.
Name a secretary that can tell you what to do to stay safe during a hurricane because you didn't evacuate.
Right.
Even though I'm there worrying about my own family. And then name a secretary who still, after 12 years after the call, can still hear the screams of a child whose father came out on Christmas Day while they were opening presents and shot himself in the head in front of them. So 12 years later, I still can hear that and have goosebumps now.
Right.
I don't know any secretaries that have to take those calls in the office. And for any first responder that questions if we're first responders, I let them know. We've had captains come and sit in our, fire EMS dispatch. One day, one of our tenured captains took a call for a structure fire. There was a bedridden mother there and her daughter. He tried to convince the daughter, do not go back inside the house. Don't go back in. Begged her not to go back in. But she went back in anyway and was hoping for rescue to get there, and we didn't. We didn't get there quick enough. They both were gone. And he walked out and has never came back.
Yeah.
So any first responder that thinks that they can come in and do our job, by all means, come on in.
Sure. Well, and who do the first responders call when they need help?
they call us. We actually recently
Thank
just
you
took
very
a
much.
call from one of our firefighters. His baby stopped breathing, and we walked him through, CPR, even though he was obviously CPR certified, and his wife was, very upset, obviously on the phone, and the baby ended up surviving. So
Fantastic.
that dispatcher was recognized at our, end of the year awards for walking him through CPR.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I think for some of our field responders to recognize that we're first responders, they need the data that shows that we're also managing the same patient and scene. So like Jim kind of started, nobody catches that baby if we don't tell them or keeps it warm. Right. And nobody applies the tourniquet to stop bleeding. So if we can show them the time that was applied versus when the responders arrived, remind them how much more that patient would have bled and increases the mortality, that kind of thing helps them recognize us as first responders.
That is such an amazing point. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to go a little bit of the facts, stats driven. So a couple of years ago, I was a part of CCM course through Fitch and Associates, and we did a study out of the state of Colorado on dispatcher-driven protocols and patient care. And so my group went into the state of Colorado and we surveyed as many centers as we could. We sent out 112 surveys. And we got a response of 52 centers. Out of 52 centers, out of all of those, actually only 3 centers gave pre-arrival instructions over the phone. And that was actually pretty heartbreaking. And I think everybody in here being IAED, we all give instructions over the phone, whether it be PD, FD, or EMS. But to that point, that dug us into a little bit more of the data. And RQI actually has a lot of good data out there. And Julie Buckingham, I'm sure most of y'all may know her. She's really good, and she drives dispatcher pre-arrivals. And anyways, so with that, we looked into a lot of the data, and there was one data that really stuck out to me, that 52% of patients who have hands-on CPR just by the instructions over the phone have over a 50% chance of survival and sudden cardiac arrest. And I like to drive that point when people talk about first responders, and I'm lucky I'm in a state of Texas where dispatchers are classified as first responders since 2019. But with that, there was a quote that stuck out to me as well, and it said, a patient is not survivable whose dispatch has not made survivable. And I use that everywhere I go, and it just kind of gives me goosebumps. And so I like to use a little bit of the fact-driven thing. I'm going to go into the next slide that talked about how to get your first responders to recognize dispatchers as first responders. And I work for an air medical company as well as a ground. And so with that, we have our flight nurses who are required to do rotations in dispatch now. And we actually don't let them sit with the flight dispatcher. We make them sit with the 911 call takers, specifically for that reason. And there was a couple of years ago, again, one of the flight nurses listened to us give CPR over the phone, and the screams and everything. She was like, I can never do your job. And
Right.
she literally walked out and was like, thank you for what you guys do. And so I think that first responders, I think it should be mandated that they sit in their entry part of being put out into a squad car, ambulance, or a fire truck, and let them hear what we hear, because it totally is completely different.
Yeah. And long gone are the days when, people call 911 and all they expect is for us to send an ambulance, fire truck, or police officer. We've now come into the age where people know and understand and expect that person on the other end of the phone is going to know what to tell them to do while they're waiting. So I love that. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm from Bristol, Connecticut, and I kind of want to just piggyback off what you had said. We had one of our officers that actually retired and said, I'm going to come into dispatch. This is great. I can totally do this. She lasted maybe, a year, if that, and she's like, nope, can't do this. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't know how you guys do this. This is just not for me. I thought it was something totally different. So it was nice for her to be able to pick up on that and be like, wow, what I thought you guys did, is not, in fact, the case. But I do have a couple other things, sorry.
No, please.
I think that some of these guys forget that in stressful situations, people can't remember basic information. It'll be like, hey, what's your address? Where are you? Oh my God, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, we have things for that. We have tools for that, so we can see that you're at 123 Main Street or whatever. So we get that information that you guys may not be able to like have before you go there, you know,
Right.
like we send you to those places, so how would you get there if we didn't do that? And then the last thing, we 2 years ago we had a double line of duty death, and in our agency, you know, we're very close, we're friends, we're whatever, and I'd like to introduce people who don't think that we're first responders to my friends who worked that night, who are no longer the same people, because they sent LifeStar to our guys that didn't make it and did everything that we couldn't do on scene because we weren't there.
Right.
So they're different people now because of what they heard, not because of what they saw.
Right. That's a really good point, yeah. And it kind of ties back into what we talked about, that all you have is the power of your voice, right? And you're doing the best you can to send the people that can put their hands on the patient, and your friend, your absolute friend. So thank you.
So we're from Idaho, where we're also recognized as first responders. For me, it didn't really click until a couple years ago. I took a 17-year-old, I think it was. He had a gun in the car. He planned to go out and kill himself. He was in a McDonald's parking lot. I was able to talk the gun down, all that jazz, build a rapport with him, and then when officers came on scene, I let him know he wasn't in trouble and kind of went through the tactical side, I guess you could say, of dispatch. It wasn't until the chief called in and talked to me personally and was like, I didn't really realize like what y'all do and how it really helps. And while we can't save all of them, you always have the one that you do think about saving. And it kind of clicked, like I was able to make him safe in order to keep my officer safe and like everyone on scene. So I think it's important to realize that we control the scene before even officers or paramedics get on scene.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm from another Amber. I'm from Chesterfield, Virginia, and I haven't been a dispatcher as long as nearly all of you, but last September I had a string of bad occurrences. I had a 9-month-old infant death where we did CPR for 10 minutes while the first responders were getting up to it was an apartment. And me, Dad, and Grandma are working as a team to try to get this baby breathing, and it's just not. And me, Dad, and Grandma, and my supervisor who was listening to my call are the only 4 people on this planet that heard that baby take its last breath, and that's just something that sticks with you. And then a couple days later, I had a mom who found her son hanging, and sometimes it just doesn't stop.
Right.
And we're here, and her screams are the only thing that you can remember. Mm-hmm. And she collapsed into my responder's arms after that, and my only job was to just get her outside because she was just panicking. And I think I would like our first responders to know that sometimes we're with these people in their worst moments, and we get them calm enough that they're able to give our EMS, our police responders, our fire responders more information when we get there. Our job is to just help them get as calm as possible to get them the best help they can. And sometimes that takes a lot out of us. And I know everybody here can relate to that.
Thank you.
Well, I've had 2 really bad calls. I guess the worst one was I took a call from a young juvenile. He was about 13, 15, somewhere in that age group, and he was calling in that his baby brother wasn't responding right. So we get EMS and fire en route, and our fire department gets on scene first. Well, what was wrong with the baby is it had been beat to death. And first things they say, and they were all choked up at Central, I need you to get PD here, quick. You know, they usually don't say quick if it's not something bad. And I could tell in his voice he was struggling not to cry.
Right.
The baby's still alive. They're working on it and everything. We get EMS there. They're working on it. And then you got the parents in another room, acts like it's nothing, And so they're all just restraining themselves to keep from harming those parents. And they finally get the baby transported to the hospital. And, of course, he does not make it. It's, I think, a big court case now, which we never hear that side of it. Right. But, you have that in your, I could hear in the juvenile's voice, what do I do? And I'm trying to tell him, I said, is he breathing? Yeah, he's breathing. I said, okay. I said, and he was in a totally different room to keep them from hearing him. They had locked themselves in a bedroom till the responders got there.
Yeah. And I think that every one of us in here, no matter what type of call it is, because you're going in blindfolded with your hands tied behind your back, you have to mentally transport yourself into that scene and try to visualize. And sometimes I think that might even be worse than the people that see what it really looked like, right? Because our minds go to that whole other place.
It's kind of like you make a movie out of it in your mind.
Absolutely.
You can see it all, whether you're there or not.
And you kind of have to do that to be efficient and good at what you're doing, to know what to ask for and what to look for and where to go next. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hi, my name is Betsy. I've been dispatching for a little over 12 years. I stumbled upon this career by accident.
Sure.
I didn't know what I was getting into. So I'm going to start at the beginning of my career. When I was in training, I was the only Hispanic in my facility. And we had a routine call come in. And my trainer was like, you want to take it? Because it was a Spanish caller. Well, this elderly lady was about to commit suicide. And I had no training. I was fresh in training. I didn't know what to say, and there was not enough time for me to communicate back and forth between my trainer and the caller. So I had to free fall and just treat this woman like she was my grandmother.
Yeah.
And so it became personal for me because I had no other choice. And I just kept her on the phone. That's the only thing my trainer could tell me. I explained to her, this lady wants to kill herself, what do I do? And she said, keep talking to her. And I did. And, just through conversation with her, trying to find out where she's from. She's giving me information from Puerto Rico, and I'm like, where you're at now? And we were able to get there. The problem was the officers didn't speak Spanish. So oftentimes we got there on time, and the officers thanked me afterwards because not only was she about to jump, she also had a gun. She also had her note prepared for her family who she felt abandoned. Like, she was ready to make it happen. And we were able to save her life. But there were so many other calls that I had where the officers had to use me to translate for them. And I've gotten, calls where the husband said, I just stabbed my wife. And I had to get that information first before the officers could get it because they were not able to communicate what was going on. So thankfully, I am in a state where I do believe that the officers and the firefighters and the EMS do recognize us as first responders. But I've also had to deal with people on the phone who are family. I had a friend's niece get bit by the family dog, and I had to take away the fact that I'm actually personal with these people and become professional. So I tell that to people a lot, like, we're the first people you talk to. We're the ones who get the information first. Before the officers get on scene, we're the ones who calming you down. We're the ones, and I think they recognize that. So I've been fortunate enough to have people recognize that, yes, you are first responders. I've never had anyone say otherwise.
Good. I'm so glad
That's
to
awesome.
hear that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from Williamson County Emergency Communications in Texas. I wanted to talk about first responders not thinking that dispatchers are also first responders. I'm sure we've all experienced it in some form or another. When I was still a relatively new fire and EMS dispatcher, it's very common in my agency for us to go and do a ride-out with the agencies that we dispatch for. So I went and I did a ride-out with one of our most commonly utilized ambulances. And when I got there, I was very excited. I was tired, but excited. And we almost immediately got called out for a wedding venue that was on a river that had gotten suddenly very flooded. They were far, far over capacity. They had 100 people, just under 100 people, that were stranded in this flooded wedding venue, and that they couldn't get out. They were trapped. We had to call up boats to get some of them out. People were stranded in trees, trying to not to get swept away down the river. It was a very hectic event, and it did a lot to some of our, even our very experienced dispatchers, having to hear them say, you know, tell my wife I love her, I'm probably never gonna see her again, things like that. So we ended up being out on that scene for about 5 hours. It was a really great experience for me as someone that was so new, getting to see like our medics in action and like the firefighters that were there and the police that came out. It was a phenomenal experience. It really helped me have a better understanding of what they do and how hectic it can be, and that was a wonderful experience. Then we got back to the station, and we were waiting for our next call out, and they were asking me, like, you know, like, what do you like about being a dispatcher? What's the craziest call you've taken? All the normal things that people ask. And I told them, oh, recently I got a Phoenix Award because I worked a CPR call, and, you know, the person came back, and almost as soon as I talked about getting a Phoenix Award, one of the medics that was with us kind of, you know, made a snarky face and was like, well, you don't deserve that. Why would you get a Phoenix Award?
Ouch.
Yeah. And I was still really new, and I was like, well, maybe that means something different for us than it means for y'all. Like, you know, for us, it's when we do CPR and the patient gets ROSC and they come back. And he was like, oh, no, I know what it is, and you don't deserve that. And I was very taken aback and honestly really just kind of confused because I had never had an experience like that before in dispatch. Everyone had always been like extremely supportive and like always really hammered into us the difference that we'd make. And then hearing it from a responder that I had just spent 5 hours looking up to, thinking they were like this superhero that saved lives. So yeah, I didn't really know how to react to it, and it was towards the end of the ride out anyway, and they got called out to another call, and I was able to kind of be like, oh, sorry, I have to go, I'm not gonna go with you. I really just didn't want him to see me crying.
Yeah.
So I went back, and that was the first 5 hours of my 12-hour shift, and I was honestly a little down in the dumps about it, and the person who had just got done training me, she could tell that there was a difference in me and something was clearly wrong. And so I told her what had happened, and she was furious.
Yes.
You don't know this woman, but she is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And I was just going to try to sweep it under the rug, and
Yeah.
you know, it's not that big of a deal. It didn't, it doesn't matter that much. And she was very adamant that it did matter because what we do is important and it's hard, and we don't deserve to feel that way. So she went and told our manager about it. And then the next day, I got an awkward email. I mean, I say awkward, just I find everything awkward. And it was from that particular EMS person's director apologizing on their behalf, letting me know that I would be doing another ride-out with the commander this time, which I wasn't looking forward to because of the last experience. But also that EMS person would be doing a shift in dispatch to give him a better understanding of what we did and why it mattered.
Fantastic.
So I got to go and do my second ride out with the commander, which was fun. It was great. Again, I think, all first responders are superheroes in their own way. I know it's cheesy, but they're out, saving lives. It's really cool. And while I was on my other ride out, that EMS person did a sit-in with dispatch for 6 hours, and in that time he had to take a CPR call. And let me tell you how quickly that man's tone changed when he was the one giving CPR instructions over the phone and not with his physical hands on a chest.
Right.
So when I came back to the station, he sat down with me and was very apologetic and was like, I had no idea that this is what y'all did. I honestly thought that y'all were just glorified secretaries.
Wow.
Which he was trying to be nice, so it's fine. And seeing the way that his thought process had shifted towards us when he was actually the one doing it himself, it actually led the EMS commander to have all of their new people do sit-ins with dispatch. So now they all do a 6-hour sit-in shift with us to really see what we do and get a better understanding of it. That being said, a negative thing had a very positive outcome, but it's interesting to see how sometimes other first responders don't understand why we are first responders, and little changes here and there can really make a big difference. That being said, I'm very proud to say that Williamson County, we got 7 Phoenix Awards this year for our dispatchers and EMS people. And 4 Stork Awards. So yeah, that's my story.
I love to see when we can turn things around like that and really affect meaningful change in that situation, because at the end of the day, we are all on the same team. I mean, you know, you just spoke about how these are our friends and our brothers and sisters out there, and how can they, you know, treat their family that way. So I love that person had an awakening and a change for the good. That's fantastic.
Yeah, those sit-alongs actually help bridge the gap between all disciplines of public safety. So
100%.
yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, I think I saw another hand. So 2 more. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I am Alicia. I'm from Sacramento, California, and I wanted to just touch base. You just said that these are our brothers and sisters out there, and I do have a brother who is a firefighter. He started academy when I was about a year and a half into dispatching, and I just remember being very upset because he was like, "You were not a first responder," and this is my little brother. I was there for him. I watched him grow up, and I was very taken back. And I was like, "What do you mean I'm not a first responder?" He's like, "Well, I'm an academy. I'm going to be going out there. I'm going to be on scene. I'm going to be taking care of these people." And I just remember talking to him, and I'm the person that answers the call. I am the person on their possible worst day that talks to them and helps them help their loved ones while you're still driving. I am still here and talking to them while you are, putting on your turnouts and getting into your ambulance, your fire truck, whatever. I might not be physically there on scene with you, but I am the first voice that is able to offer help and support and be there. And I just remember my brother looking at me and just like, okay, I think you're right, but I'm not sure yet. And so now he's 2.5 years in, and I got deployed to the Eaton Fire in Los Angeles. And I remember him saying, "You're an amazing person, and the fact that you get to be in a comms van and help them, I'm sorry that I ever doubted you. You get to do this and help us on the front line," and I never put 2 and 2 together. And it was just probably one of the most amazing moments I've had, because I was like, my little brother's my little brother again.
Yeah. And now I don't have to tell mom.
Exactly. We had a whole conversation. My mom is also a respiratory therapist, so she was like, you take that back. But we had to work it out in our own ways. But it was just a big light bulb for him, I think. And
That's
it just
awesome.
It's amazing.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Franny Chung. I'm from Hawaii, and this is my partner, Sherry Ann, from Hawaii, from EMS Dispatch. I'd just like to say something really short. In Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, last year we ran about 110 911 calls, and I consider the dispatchers in our center to be advanced first responders. And for the city of Honolulu, our EMS administration recognized us as first responders. And now when they honor the paramedics that save lives, they also include the dispatchers. So they accept us as first responders. So we don't have that problem of fighting for our recognition. They're all very resilient and extraordinary dispatchers in Honolulu, Hawaii. I just want to share that with everyone, and that's it.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your facts and your just your experiences and who you are and the people you've been connecting with. All of our email information is up here. Again, you can download it on the app if you want. You can take a picture of this. I'm always looking for people to talk to about things that are going on in your center, things that are going on in your life. Meridith and Ricardo are the same.
Yeah.
I haven't met anyone that these two wouldn't talk to for half an hour. So
Hours.
Thank you so much for being here, and have a good last session.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Oh yeah, get a t-shirt from Meridith.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to let us know what you liked, and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Look for @TellMeExactly to get the latest on all things emergency communications. Tell Me Exactly is a Priority Dispatch Corporation podcast developed by our team of protocol experts and hosted by me, Meridith Jensen, with Cody Ekman as producer, Reading Roberts as sound engineer, Scott Robinson and Jason Barber as executive producers.